Hello and welcome to Vision Denial. My name is Sam, and if you're new here, I've watched every single playoff game of 2022 for all 11 participating regions. Yes, including that one. And I've been using the show to cover the escapades of Worlds, either on a per day basis when it was just the when it was like play-ins to main event for the group stage, or once a week for the bracket stage. And I've done these little previews for these best of fives more as like a thought process of how I would choose, or like to show how I would choose which team was going to win. And given the kind of wildness that was especially the Gen G versus DRX one, I thought this one would be a little different. Instead of just like showing you after the fact, after I've made my decision, because I've tried mulling over this. I've looked at the back and forth between the two, and I thought instead, how about we just like look to... I'm going to go through this with all of you. So we're going to go through the different matchups from each role one by one for this T1 versus DRX finals. And honestly, I'm super excited. I'm still fairly undecided on the situation. Looking at the back and forth, I think any of these two teams could take it just from how it is. And if you flip the coin, or if you picked one side over the other, either from hype or from just history, I would not disagree with you. So instead of just trying to convince or try to explain my logic, because I'm picking T1 mostly on the basis of I really wanted to see Faker just come back. And it looks like he's that close to doing so. But I have my doubts. So let's take a look at the matchups and you tell me what you think. So let's start with the top lane. In the top lane, we've got Zeus versus Kingen. And immediately upon looking just at their shared champion pool, there is an immediate comparison to their weak side play. And honestly, it would befit a lot of different narratives to say that this matchup is close. And personally, I don't think it is that close. I think it is a very stylistically divergent matchup. There are aspects between the two of them that seem fairly similar, right? Their KDAs are fairly similar. They're usually fairly good at controlling the top lane, but the ways that they do it are fairly different. Zeus has a higher kill participation and kill share overall, as well as a higher damage per minute, a higher gold per minute. And so to that, if you were doing a strict 1-to-1 matchup, I give the advantage to Zeus. But if we were to talk about stylistically speaking, just from the champion pool alone, Kingen is much better at approaching team fights overall. In the sense that like he's very disruptive. He makes sure that he controls the zones that are necessary for DRX to do what is needed. I would still give favor towards Zeus, who seems to, regardless of how much his opponents try to control him or try to like keep him in place, fail at every regard. And out of the two, Zeus is the strongest weak side player and has more options of being played through him in the event that they need a carry in that role. And that kind of worries me for DRX in terms of at least the top lane matchup. But Kingen has done a lot with very little, and so it would not surprise me if at any given point both opt to not really focus the top lane for their picks and bans in terms of their drafts, and really just allow the other to pick what they want, because they're going to be able to do what they need regardless of what's picked. Into the jungle, we've got Oner versus Pioshik. And I'm not going to lie, I've made my reservations about Pioshik super clear since the playoffs of the LCK. He has still not shown me he is super proactive yet. He hasn't shown me that he is the consistent factor within the team. But boy, has he ever improved since August. There is a categorical fact that the way in which Pyosik has really risen and stepped up to the plate when mattered for his team, like, out of the matchup between the two, there is no need to explain how solid and consistent Oner is. But when looking side by side in terms of the ability in which Pyosik has improved, this is the closest matchup. Literally, in terms of, like, the only thing that's not close between the two is the KDA, in which Pyosik is the winner between the two. They're very close in gold per minute, close in CS per minute, damage per minute. Their overall ability in terms of kill participation, super close. Kill share, super close. Gold share. Every metric and style in which they play are they're largely identical. And given how much neutral objectives in general matter a whole lot during this, and looking at which ways both of these teams play stylistically around neutral objectives, it is so incredibly similar. I give maybe the slight like advantage, but only the marginally slightest advantage towards Oner and the ability to control neutral objectives, but only marginally so. There is not enough of a difference here for me to give such a strong advantage to either side. Whereas the top lane, it was very clear which side was much stronger in terms of a 1v1 matchup, but there's at least stylistic differences. These two are very similar players, but with barely any edge or nudge that can be given from this. It's the mid lane matchup. We've got Faker, no need to explain the unkillable king, versus Zeka, King Slayer. It is hard for me to look at this particular stat sheet here, right? By all metrics, Faker has not been the strongest laner for a long time. He is the most consistent player in history. Literally in all of history, he is the most consistent player across a myriad of patches. But when comparing him to Zeka and his feats, he falls short in gold per minute, CS per minute, damage per minute. His KDA nearly like over double what Faker has. Zeka is a 7.46 KDA over Faker's 3.54. Literally over double. He's got a stronger kill participation, stronger kill share, stronger gold share. Everything except damage per minute. Faker still manages to out-damage Zeka. And when considering the way that these two kinds of players go, Zeka looks like he is somebody trying to prove that not only can he beat the best, but that he is the best in his lane. And honestly, that's very hard to dispute looking at everything. But Faker doesn't need to prove that he's the best player of all time, and yet he continues to do so. And while for now I give strong favors, Zeka has the hugest advantage in this matchup. There is always something in the back of my mind wondering, how is it that despite Zeka's incredible statistical line, that Faker is still out-damaging him? And that still baffles me, as Faker is also one who looks for plays not for individual outplay, but for team fight outplay. Something I really want to see Zeka do. So favors towards Zeka, but let that linger in the back of your head. Remember when I mentioned the previous matchup and how, like, the back of your mind should remember the damage per minute thing? Well, this is why. We've got Gumayusi versus Deft. And as much as I really like Deft as a player, and I've mentioned this time and time again, he is a utility, cleanup, consistent player. And when looking at the stat line, Gumayusi is the most impressive between the two, most impressive out of anyone in this role for the entire tournament. And I mention this because he also nearly doubles Deft's KDA. Beats him in CS per minute, beats him in gold per minute, beats him in damage per minute, kill participation, kill share, gold share, beats him in every stat line. Whereas the previous matchup, there's the damage per minute part that lingers in the back of your head. There is nothing to linger. Gumayusi here has the advantage across the board. And this is not just like, oh, a stylistic difference could maybe make it happen. There is enough of a small overlap between their playstyles in which drafting does matter for how these two players go. There's not a huge overlap. There's a small overlap, but enough for me to think that if ever Deft is pinched and it has to contest against Gumayusi, where both of them are pinched of so much and are left with very little to work with, I think Gumayusi wins almost every single matchup in this lane. Almost. The thing here is that Gumayusi is a team fighting and skirmishing focused player. Hence why he beats them on so many aspects of the kill participation, share, damage per minute, and the KDA. There is such a large focus on this that it is very easy to miss out that only recently did Gumayusi die in the tournament, whilst Deft has had a very low death score overall. And so their KDAs blur the line in the fact that he's still getting more kills, while Deft is still staying alive and providing enough damage per minute to be comparable. He's down 72. And so I don't count Deft out, but I still give heavy advantages to Gumayusi. And then we head to the bot lane, or head to the support role specifically. What I would categorize as the most deceiving matchup, Keria versus BeryL. And I mentioned deceiving because between the two of them, their champion pool has a large overlap, but that's because BeryL swallows it whole. Just swallows it. And looking at the two in terms of their ability to provide aid and utility towards their team, BeryL has the advantage again. He manages to help provide much stronger vision for his team. And yes, vision in and of itself is a team-based application. But when I see such a large difference between the two, and with vision wards being the most significant aspect of this on a regular basis, BeryL beats him in that remark, right? It is very hard for me to look at the situation, see how T1 plays vision, and not literally give the advantage to DRX in terms of vision and application and zone control, where BeryL excels in that, until I see that Keria nearly triples the KDA that BeryL has. Where BeryL has a large advantage in terms of the application of vision, zone control, being able to aid his team, do a lot in terms of the kill share, Keria seems to be more efficient and stays up longer on per game basis. And so for now, my mind goes and gives a slight advantage to BeryL in the matchup, with the caveat that BeryL isn't doing a whole lot for team fights outside of being there and providing vision and zone control, while Keria is a lot more involved in terms of the team fighting. It's really a matchup of, do you care more about the support who provides much more vision versus the support that provides more team fight assistance? And it's not a strong difference between the two, but it is a difference to be noted regardless. Now, this is the section in which I would usually go over and try to explain my logical on things, right? Why am I picking T1 over DRX? And honestly, it's very hard for me to really justify the pick. The pick'ems literally says that the vast majority of people are picking T1. And my brain is telling me that that is way too high of a confidence, right? If I look at the pick'ems again, it is 85% of people are picking T1. That's too high of a confident point. Because I'm looking down the situation. T1 have the advantage on gold per minute, gold difference per minute. They barely lose, however, on gold differential at 15 minutes, where DRX wins it. They're better with the win rates when they're ahead at 15 minutes, but DRX's win rate when ahead at 15 minutes goes up per series and per game. Their average tower difference goes to T1 again, but the first tower goes more often towards DRX. The damage per minute is T1 favored, but the first blood is DRX favored. Kills per game is T1 favored, but if you look at the kill-death ratio, it is lockstep. T1 gets more plates, but at the end of the day, DRX gets more Drakes overall. But like barely enough to consider the two. Like I go down the list and it's like, well, T1 is better at this, but DRX is better at this, and it's not enough of a one-way street. And really looking at the games, DRX has had a better early game overall and a better application of controlling vision and how their wind controls are supposed to go and how they balloon leads. But T1 is better at, once they've gotten to that point, actually closing out the game. They are a faster team just by default. They are much more efficient at actually ballooning the leads to close out the game. And DRX may be more consistent at all of those aspects. And I'm still going back and forth between the two, really looking at these games. And where T1, I expected them to go really close with JDG, but they surprised me at how not close it was. In DRX, I was expecting to be a valiant effort. They had aspects that were going to like shake Genji up and instead completely tower over and make them feel like fools almost. I'm in a situation here where I don't think there is even a smidgen of a chance that you could even consider this to be a strong favorite. I'm still picking T1. From the beginning of the playoffs in spring, I thought T1 was the scariest team of the year, and I had a strong thought that they were going to be a top 8, maybe a finalists at that point. But as time went on, my confidence in T1 was shaken a little bit to the point where I didn't think they were going to necessarily eke out the win in the semifinals. Lo and behold, we're here. DRX, I never had confidence ever. And they became a steamrolling giant. Going through planes, a formality. Going through groups, a challenge, and yet they still overcame it. Going through the quarterfinals, they proved excellent. Semifinals, they surpassed all expectations. And here in the finals, literally being in the finals is the largest thing they could have accomplished at all this year. Just given by default how they actually played the rest of this year. And it's commendable. And it would not shock me if they won. I'm still picking T1. But I'm putting 3-2. Again, because I'm not confident on either side. And the fact that they're still 85% saying, yes, it's absolutely T1, baffles me. But honestly, the hype of the storyline is there. It's 3-2 either way for me. And if it's 3-0 somehow, that'll be even wilder of a situation or will raise question marks. And I'm just excited for Saturday. So, with that in mind, I do want to ask all of you who have been really awesome watching these videos, commenting when you can, and with your thoughts. I'm picking T1. I want to know who you're picking. Why are you picking them? Do you have even a strong confidence in your pick? Are you like me where you're not quite certain you're even picking the right one? Do you think that this matchup should be viewed equally, or is there an aspect here where you think it's strongly one-sided over the other? Any and all of your thoughts, I would love to hear in the comments down below. If you like these kinds of videos, like and subscribe, all the regular stuff. I've got stuff on the sides at the end of it. But honestly, again, I've got maybe one more video after this for the rest of the year. And I really appreciated everyone who's watched. It's been really fantastic and very heartwarming with all of the positive messages. Even the ones that completely disagree with me, awesome. I love it. I go on this journey just to document my thoughts and really get the practice in on analyzing these games. And come Saturday, we should all enjoy what is going to be, no doubt, an excellent series. And so with that, I will see you all likely Saturday night. Have a good one, and I'll see you then.